As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Jeff Paterson is from Portland, Oregon, and has over 36 years of experience practicing and teaching the meditative and martial arts. As the founder of Northwest Fighting Arts, Portland Tai Chi Academy, and the Yielding Warrior, where he emphasizes the transformative power of meditative and martial art practices, particularly the yielding concept. He has published 2 books and hundreds of instructional videos. He's also the founder of the Yielding Warrior online program and has worked with thousands of students from around the world. So thanks for being on the show today, Jeff. I truly appreciate it. You have this really interesting skill that, for me, meditation has been an absolute game changer. I started a regular practice of meditation probably 7 or 8 years ago, and it really has just helped me out. So I'm really excited to have you on here to show us how we can optimize our bodies and make ourselves work better and through meditation. But I want to ask, every one of us has a story behind how we got into whatever we do. So like for me, as keynote architect, I've got a story about a really bad FDA compliance training that I had to present. And I didn't, that was my moment when I had to change and something had to go. For you, how did you get into meditation, Qigong, Tai Chi, all of the modalities that you use? How did you get into it?
Yes, so I was introduced to the meditative arts in a bit of a roundabout way. When I was a younger guy, my 19, 20-year range, I was really into Western boxing. And I used to go to this gym just a few blocks down the street here from my academy. And there's in a boxing gym, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but it's not like a class structure. So you go in and each coach might have 4 or 5 fighters that they're working with, and they spend the majority of their time with those competitors. Well, there was one coach at this gym who was a very well-known coach. He had actually created national and world champion level fighters, and I really wanted to get a chance to spend some time with him. And so I started showing up at the gym when I knew he was going to be there. I worked really hard. I tried to get his attention. And finally, after following him around for 3 or 4 months, he started giving me a little bit of attention and teaching me a few things. And it wasn't too long after that that he said something to me that changed my life forever. And that he said, if you really want to be a good boxer, you should start doing meditation and Tai Chi. And at the time, I was this young guy, didn't know much about anything. I thought, meditation and Tai Chi was for old people in the park. I had no idea how this was going to help me be a better fighter, but I had a lot of respect for him. I took on the practice and it changed my life in so many ways. And through the years, I've been able to influence, thousands of people in the practice. Here at the Academy, we've been fortunate enough to have over 26,000 members come through the Academy. So I've been teaching for over 30 years, and it's just been a major part of my life in many different ways.
Interesting. So they keep saying the Academy. Is that like a program that you have? Or is it like a specific spot? Can people do it virtually? What sort of kind of curious to hear a little bit more
Yes.
about that.
So the Academy is my physical location. So it's here in Portland, Oregon. We teach martial arts here. We have our meditative program, which is the Tai Chi, Qigong, sitting meditation. And then we have our external martial arts that we do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and Eskrima. That's kind of like my second home. I'm here all the time. And then I have my online program, the Yielding Warrior, which is around my most recent book teaching the meditative practices and the concept of yielding.
Okay, cool. And yielding, I think we all think there's one specific, like yielding is weak. Yielding is, as entrepreneurs, we don't often yield. We're often just forging forward. So sometimes recklessly, most of the time just passionately into a direction. So when I hear the term yielding, I always think, well, might not be something I'm into. What are your thoughts on that?
So it's funny you say that because a lot of times people have that perception of the idea of yielding, and yielding is so deep and so advanced that you can use in any aggressive nature. And that's why my boxing coach was telling me to integrate these arts to be a better boxer. It really doesn't get too much more aggressive than boxing.
Mhm.
And the idea of yielding, there's many different ways that you can use the skill of yielding. I break it down into 3 categories. We have physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. Physical yielding is the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force. And so now I can respond with less effort. So I'm not trying to butt heads with you and see if I'm stronger. And this allows me in the combative sports or even any other athletic endeavor you might be into, allows you to deal with bigger, stronger opponents and oftentimes get the jump and get the advantage in any one direction or any one thing you're trying to do. And so a lot of athletes and high performing, professional athletes use the idea of meditation and some of these yielding skills to perform at a higher level.
Mm.
Now, it takes years and years to get to a high level of physical yielding. However, from day one, you start to experience many of these benefits. And what happens is in order to be good at physical yielding, you have to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed, the breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. Now, when you start noticing this and becoming more aware of what's coming on inside yourself, now you also start to see these things more clearly in other people. And this is where we start to move into mental yielding. Say, for example, I say something that unsettles you and I pick up on it right from the start. Maybe you shift your weight or change your expression or your breath or your energetic state changes. And I notice this, it's a lot easier to adjust the conversation and keep us in a happy place than if I'm not paying attention to that. Pretty soon I'm so far off track, you want to knock me upside the head. And so learning how to use yielding in any interaction is extremely powerful. You can use this in business and sales and negotiations. And, it's been used for generations. You even go back and look at military conflicts, and they use yielding all the time in military strategy. So you can see that it's not really a weak idea. It's teaching you how to position yourself to get the most positive outcome you want with the least amount of resistance. Then, lastly, there's the idea of emotional yielding. And emotional yielding is very much like mental yielding, but with your own interpersonal conflicts. So many times things will happen to us and we'll respond and we'll go down this path and we might get an hour, a day, a week down that road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But with yielding, if we could have noticed that right from the beginning before it gained any momentum in any one direction, oftentimes it gives us the ability to evaluate the situation a little bit more clearly and maybe make a more educated choice without letting our emotions get in the way. And so this idea of yielding through this expanded awareness that we get through practicing the meditative arts can be used very strategically and skillfully in any area in life.
So now when you say yielding, and again, it's a concept that usually as entrepreneurs, we're not used to getting it. So we're not used to thinking in this direction. What would be an application in a business setting where, like, or even an example from the past that you've seen work successfully in a business setting of yielding and that creating a successful result?
Yeah, so well, there's many, but kind of an easy example to see is say you're in a sales negotiation with somebody and they're
Mhm.
coming up with these objections. Rather than try to have a direct answer to the objection, you start to show a little bit of empathy and understanding of what this objection is about and show them how to redirect that with a positive look on how what you are offering offers a solution to that problem that they're showing you, rather than just butting it head on and saying, oh no, that's not right, this is how we do it, this will fix that. Now you're letting them kind of see and feel and understand that with an easy approach so they don't have to lose face and think that what they said was stupid. Now you're working together with that person. You're yielding to that negativity you get. You're showing them how to get it back on a positive path and taking it on a direction that can be helpful to you strategically with whatever outcome you desire.
Huh, that's really interesting because you're saying you said earlier about, and you've said it a couple of times about that yielding isn't about being weak. Yield is about the maximum, the most efficient use of your energies. Whereas if I'm going to go, bull rushing at somebody three times my size, that's not going to help. If I yield for a second, it might be a better way for me to handle it. And so, but I wanted that specific kind of here's how you would use this in a business aspect because I think we can get it in from a confrontational aspect, like I don't want to say just straight fighting, but boxing from a physical aspect, but it's that mental and emotional are the ones that I think that we often miss. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Cool. This is fascinating to me because I really like to hear these other ways of doing things and something that's so far. The best conversations for me are the ones that are so far beyond what I've encountered before, and this one's out there, and I like it. I like this. I like the idea. So meditation. I've been doing meditation for years, and I'm a huge advocate for meditation for a lot of different reasons. But the biggest ones, you say there's three types. So I'd like to go through your three types of meditation, and then like how would I use them? Do I need to like sit in a dark room with nothing on for 8 hours a day and do it, or is this something that I can do for like 10 minutes and still get the effects? Or so yeah, go into a little bit more about kind of the types of meditation and what's the most optimal setting, if you will, to do meditation.
Okay, so there's a lot of directions we can take that. I'll start by just breaking down what I call ritual, active, and philosophical practices. So when you're building a meditative practice, the idea of meditation isn't to do it once or twice a week where you have a hobby and you experience maybe a few benefits from the practice. It's really meant to be a way of life. And how do we integrate these practices into everything we do every day? And, you don't need to retire to a cave and meditate 8 hours a day. That's not the idea behind it. But if you have a ritual practice that you do every day, and that could be a sitting meditation, a movement practice through Qigong or Tai Chi, it could be through doing different yoga postures, it could be doing standing meditation. There's lots of different things that we could use for a ritual practice, but we say we do this 20 minutes a day. We have that as a foundation. That would be our ritual. And the Dalai Lama once said, everybody should meditate for 20 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy, then you should meditate for an hour. And I love that because everybody needs time to get out of the daily distractions and come back in and look at ourselves for who we really are and have that connection, especially, as an entrepreneur. I get caught up with the business here. And like you said, there's nights I'm here till 10 o'clock at night. And if you don't ever step away from that and just try to make that connection, oftentimes a month, 6 months, a year goes by, and you spent very little time really connecting with what's important to you. And so meditation helps us come back home and kind of have that heartfelt connection in who we are and what we're doing in it and the reasons we're doing it for. Then we have active practices. Active practices are a great tool that we can integrate into our meditative journey in that they can be done in as little as 1 minute, 2 minutes, and you can integrate these when you're walking down the street or standing in line at the grocery store. There's many different things you can do as what we call an active practice, and they could be as simple as counting out 10 breaths or doing some spinal rotations or maybe a basic movement practice to just reconnect and try to tap into that feeling inside and that place of awareness and kind of coming back to that connection that we try to establish in our ritual practices. And then lastly, there's the philosophical practices, which we could use as either an active practice or a ritual practice. So as we start to build a life practice, we take things from all three of these directions and we start to integrate practices that help us accomplish the things that we're looking to do by integrating meditation into our lives. And one of the biggest things that I see happen to people when they're thinking about taking on a meditative practice is that they get distracted. They feel like they can't do the practice because they can't quiet their mind, or they have this misconception that they're supposed to reach this state of nirvana and everything disappears when they meditate. Meditation's not meant to be this thing where it takes you away from everything else. Meditation is a way to connect and have a deeper relationship with your true being. And so, say, for example, you do a sitting meditation for 20 minutes. I don't care who you are or how advanced or how long you've been meditating, your mind is going to get distracted. Some people might happen 100 times in 20 minutes, others might be 50, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But the idea of meditation is every time we go off on one of those distractions, we use our breath, we use our posture, we use our movement if we're doing a movement practice to bring that back to center and back to focus. And if you do this 50 times in 20 minutes, you start developing that muscle and that power, that strength to bring those distractions back to that center. Now, when something stressful happens throughout the day, we've had so many repetitions through our meditative practice and being distracted and coming back to center. It helps us learn how to deal with these stressors and these different things that come up through the day. And that's why so many people who suffer from anxiety or depression or have these high stress lifestyles turn to meditation, because it helps us reconnect and be able to find that place of stillness within ourselves. And so it really is kind of a practice that, a lot of times people ask me, well, who's meditation for? I don't think there's anybody that it's not for. I think anybody can benefit from the practice and really get a lot out of it.
Yeah. And that's what I found as well. Is again, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. We're both entrepreneurs, and she's like, I told her that our base level of stress is most people's panic, because, we're just used to dealing with a lot more stressors because that's part of what we do. And there's a lot of benefit that we can get out of it. We're stronger people, but there's a lot of negative. And I think that, at least for me, meditation has helped me during those moments when I'm all triggered and 16,000 things are going wrong. It's that meditative practice that has allowed me to take all of that noise and kind of see through it and see what I need to do in the future. And so, for me, I'm a massive advocate of meditation. I think it's something that really can help everyone else out. But I really wanted you to explain some more into some of the different routes. I'm pretty good at it. You've been doing it for 35 years, so you're definitely the expert here. So let's say that somebody said, I know that meditation is good for me. I know it's right. I know I need to do it. I just haven't started yet. What's a starting point that people can get to? Like, just something to get, how did I hear it put once? Better done is better than perfect. Just something that they can start to be able to go on this path of learning meditation itself.
A few things can help with that. One is, and this is really important, is finding somebody that can be a good guide. You want to have somebody that can get you in the right mindset, teach you basic tools and basic fundamentals to help you be successful from the beginning. It's really easy, you could go on YouTube and see a jillion different things, out there on like how to do this meditation or that meditation. But if you don't have any understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, it's easy to get lost in all of the stuff. And then not only that, some of the stuff out there might not even be the best to learn at any stage, and so you you never really know where you're going without somebody to help you. The
Okay.
other thing is start simple. Make it easy, make it something that you can be successful with. Anytime somebody new comes in here to the Academy for the Meditative Arts, I always tell them right from day one, this is a practice where you want to be able to commit to doing 20 minutes a day of a ritual practice. And if you're not willing to invest that time in yourself, this isn't the right place for you. And even though I'm turning away business by saying that, I say that to everybody that walks in the door, not because I want to turn them away, but because I want them to be successful and experience the benefits of this practice. And through, the 30 years that I've been running this academy, I've seen, like I said, thousands of students come through the doors, and the ones that develop that 20 minutes a day ritual and keep that up for 1 year, 12 months, they'll see so many benefits from that practice that they'll do it for the rest of their life. I bet 98% of the time. And so my goal as a teacher is how do I get them to see those benefits, and how do I get them to be consistent so they can really experience that and integrate that into their life? And so having, I think, a good person to follow that knows how to give you the right tools to help you accomplish what you're looking to do with the meditative arts, because there's so many different directions. Within meditation, people practice it for the athletic or the combative side of the practice. There's the therapeutic side, the medical side, the philosophical side, and also the meditative or spiritual side. And you want to know why you should do one or the other. How is this one beneficial to me versus this one? And so if you start to have your why as to why you're entering this practice, a guide or a teacher can help you choose what tools would be good for a ritual practice, what tools you can use as active practices and philosophical practices to help start to build that practice around your lifestyle. And as you do this, also keep in mind that meditation's meant to be an evolving practice. Whatever you start with today isn't going to be the same a year and 5 years and 10 years down the road. I've been studying, for 36 years. I'm still just a student learning all the time. I'm not the master. And it really is a deep art form and a lot to pull from it.
Interesting. Now, you said something that's kind of interesting in that, and again, we don't really think about meditation as being a combative art. And I guess that ties back to Qigong, Tai Chi. And tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what is the origin of meditation as a combat, or what is the concept of meditation as a combative tactic, if you will, and how that would tie into like Qigong and Tai Chi and various things like that, if it does.
Yeah, so there's many different ways, and one of the a simple way to understand is just in the mindset itself. As we talked about already, how you have these distractions and it helps you come back to focus, right? If you're boxing, say, for example, if I get hit and I even spend half a second thinking about getting hit, I already got hit two more times. And so you really have to be present. So the meditative arts helps us find that ability to be more present in everything we do. So that's one benefit of the practice. Another thing is being able to expand our own internal awareness, because having the ability to be more in tune with all of the things that are going on inside of ourselves helps us to be more effective, helps us to have better timing, helps us to be more powerful, helps us to respond more to something that's happening at a fast pace. We're able to be in the moment so we don't have to be in that place where we're butting heads. And then also it helps us read other people more clearly. So, if you ever watch a good boxer, they know the punch is coming before most people ever even see it. It's because they're so in tune, they're able to be in that present state. And that's one of the things that meditation can help with as well.
Interesting, because again, I think it's more about the sometimes less is more, if I'm correct. And so instead of going at something and just fighting it for the sheer fact of fighting it, it's more stepping back and being able to make some sort of a, I don't want to say an analytical decision, but not going kind of with our more baser instincts where it's just, I'm going to fight. I think regulating some of those is what it's more about. That just like regulating what our response is versus just responding on a more primal kind of level. Is that where it is? If I understood that correctly?
Yeah. So for example, if I go to pick up a glass of water,
Mm-hmm.
I'll reach out, I pick up the glass, I bring it to my mouth, I take a drink. It looks like it from the exterior might just be two or three movements, But inside the body, there's thousands of things happening. I'm changing my weight. All of the muscles in my forearm are working simultaneously to squeeze my fingers and pick up the glass. I might adjust my breath. All of these little things that are happening to make this happen. It's really kind of magical, right? It's not just three simple movements. And by developing a meditative practice, it helps you to see all of those little details and be more in tune with what's going on. I've been explaining the idea of yielding to people for years, and a lot of times when I do that, people will say, "Oh, yeah, I understand that. That makes a lot of sense." I use that all the time, and I totally agree that I think everybody uses and understands yielding to a certain degree, but it's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years, he would see things about that timeline and the series of events that I know at least I would have no clue of. And the meditative arts helps us see things in everything we do at a higher level, more so than most people ever experience without the practice. And it's also, you kind of look at uh, if you have a coach that has a group of pretty serious athletes that are disciplined and they're showing up all the time, it's easy to get them to 85% of their potential. They're working hard, they're doing the best they can. But to get them to 95, 97%, that's a rare one in a million person. The Michael Jordans out there, the Kobe Bryants, you just don't see that very often, right? Well, that's why so many professional athletes now are turning to meditation to help get to those extra few percent. I know when uh, uh, for example, when Michael Jordan was on the Chicago Bulls and they were winning all their championships, their coach was having them practice Tai Chi and meditation to help pick up their skill level. And here you got the best basketball players on the planet, and they're trying to incorporate things that's helping improve their performance, and meditation is one of them. And so there's a lot of social proof out there into how this can help you. And it's not just in athletics, it's also in performance at a high level in business, in, the performing arts and music, and, pretty much anything you can do, it can help you reach higher levels of performance.
Exactly. And I, I think one of the things I want to ask. So now that we're kind of wrapping things up a little bit, I want to ask this. First of all, how can we get a hold of you? I'm going to put some links in the description. But how can we learn more about the Yield Warrior program? The Yielding Warrior program. I'm sorry.
Sure. So you can go to theyieldingwarrior.com,
Okay.
and that'll talk to you about kind of how to get involved in our online training and our teacher training program. But also, if you're interested in just checking out the book, you could go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book and get a free copy of the book. Just pay for shipping and handling. And that's a way to maybe get an idea of what this is all about a little beyond this podcast.
Awesome. And I always ask every podcast guest one question, and that is, what is one book or podcast, either in your past or something recently that you've read or heard, that has had a significant impact on your life?
A
So it could either
book
be
that
like something recently, or, hey, I just read this really great book and it was perfect, or this one book years ago. Like for me, it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one, and just totally, completely changed my viewpoint on how money actually
yeah.
works, and absolutely fundamentally changed my life. And there's been a lot since, but that's just the one, that I've picked as kind of the one that I use in as example. So anything recently past, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great book, by the way. But yes, one book that's standing out. I'm a pretty avid reader, and so there's a lot back there in the burner. But there's a book called Mastery by Robert Greene that I really enjoyed and pulled a lot from, and that's a great read.
Interesting. Good to know. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show. I truly appreciate it. I love what you do. Again, I've had a meditation practice for years, and it's something that for me has really helped enhance my life. So I'm glad we could bring you and your extensive experience on meditation to the podcast to help other people out.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Jeff, check out the link in the description.